as far as running a country, do we really know that they're running a country? We don't know. I would say not, especially with Biden. I'm not saying that I hate Biden. I don't think he has the capacity really to do what's needed here. And I'll just leave it at that. But if you look at our current president, right? Is he a leader? Is he an alpha? Or is he a flag carrier? What are your thoughts? Because they brought this up.
Well, for one, to be a president, whatever the society may think, industry plant, or it's orchestrated, you cannot be the president of any country and be a doormat. It's just, I don't believe that, right? You have to have something in terms that represents leadership, alpha, assertiveness, firm, standing in your word, believing in what you say. So any president that's been a president of any country, let alone the United States, has that somewhat of mental makeup of leadership.
Is
No
it
doubt
is it
about it.
partly strength, Chris? Like if you look at a person like Biden, he doesn't present a lot of internal strength or fortitude, right? Of doing things. And you said, yeah, it's not being assertive. I think there's a part of that has to be assertive. Because if you can't emphasize what your position is, and I'm not saying that he's not coming out and talking, but a lot of it is he coming out and showing and being a leader of men and women? Does he have the history of doing that? And is he presenting himself in a way where people are like, I can follow a person like that, right? Can I follow his character? Can I follow how he presents himself? And does his word back up, which I'm going to say almost every president says things that doesn't really happen, but is he doing things and then backing his word up? And is he a leader of men and women?
A leader of men and women. I don't think you need to be a leader of men and women to be a leader. I don't. I don't think that. I think that like I said, whether then there's a different topic, but whatever the conspiracy theorists may think is that presidents are chosen, they don't win these elections. I mean, even if that's the case, you still have to get people to buy in, at least temporarily, to you running an entire country.
Isn't
So
that part? Is that
yeah.
part of not being assertive though, and presenting yourself that you have the capacity to get you to the promised land or take this crusade the direction it needs to go and jump on my ship? Because you're selling yourself. If you're looking at that position of are people buying into who he is as a president, and are they following his leadership? Are they following what he stands for? Is that, it's not politics, it's characteristic of just being an alpha versus somebody out there that's just a flag holder? Where do you think he's at?
Well, okay. Well, becoming a president and being a president are two different facets. So I see where you're going now. And for whatever reason, he needed to present to himself that he could lead men and women in the United States, and he did what he needed to do at that point to get in. But now that he's there, is he? It doesn't matter who's president in my foresight. I don't. The society is going to do what it's going to do, and the marketplace and the people represent that. And will he win again? I don't know. That remains to be seen. I don't follow it enough to give an educated response in terms of policies and things like that. I'll just say that just from being in the workplace and talking to different people, it seems like a lot of people are not satisfied with his performance. To me, it doesn't affect me here or there. So I can't, like I said, I can't give a response in terms of like what I think he's doing is a leader role. However, he became the president and then because we'll say this, like, no different than someone has always worked somewhere, right? Unless you were born into money. And we'll say interview well. There's people who interview well, right? Now, oh, he's going to be great. And he or she's going to be great. Then they get into that position and they fall flat. So some people just interview well, and then when they get into that position, it's like, whoa, what happened to the person that interviewed? Right? This is not going how we expected. And uh, becoming and being are just two different aspects.
So here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to come out and say he's not a leader. I'm going to come out and say that he got his position because yes, he's had leadership roles, but even in a vice president role, he's never been a leader to me. I think the reason why you don't follow a lot of the politics and a lot of the stuff that goes on is because one, there's not a buzz behind it. Secondly, you're not really a decision maker on it. But I feel if somebody did what they said or had a leadership role or at least presented themselves that way, I think people would be more in tune to what he has to say. And it doesn't matter that he's a president. I'm just talking about him as a person. He's older. Obviously, he's longer on the tooth. There's a lot of people out there that, feel like he's unqualified for the job. He's putting, sometimes words together that don't come together. Again, this is not a knock on Biden. It's not politics. It's just looking at somebody's character. He's in a leadership role, and he's in one of the most prestigious or the prestigious role that there is that's in lights, right? That's out there. So for me, I'm going to say that he's not, based off of what I see and based off of how people are looking at him and following whatever his words are. Now, if you go through, we're going to just kind of skim through the rest of these people. Do you think that Trump was an alpha or he's a flag carrier?
In my Trump is an alpha, 100%. Yeah.
Does it mean it's good? I'm not saying he's good for doing that. It's his character. It's his way or the highway for the most part, right? Part of the leadership is you got to understand the things around you and be self-aware. I think he lacks that. Somewhat of a narcissist. That's just my opinion. Doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but I think he lacks that. And I think people have to have self-awareness. So I think he's an alpha to the fullest extent. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. It's he. I don't even want to really call it alpha. It's probably another layer, another added layer to that.
Yeah, it's narcissism. I think it's a combination, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but it served him. It served him, right? It has served him. So it's too late in the game for someone of his age because that's what he knows and it's worked. He's had a lot of success, with before becoming president, and back to self-leadership and self-belief. People might have thought he was nuts. Like, you're not. And as long as you are the only believer of your truth, I guess we saw that he won the presidency, and that alpha male and I will guess my narcissism, whatever that we may want to label it as, got him into the White House, and he can say that he was the president of the United States. And so there's cases where it helps. There's cases where it hurts, and there's cases where it's just neutral.
Well, I'm gonna say one other thing here about Trump. Now, Trump himself, he got himself into this situation, in my opinion. Again, I don't go and talk about politics. I think they're all, I think for presidents and things, there's other things going behind the scenes that is running a country, but they are the face of the country. Now, where Trump, I feel, didn't understand things is that you can't just be alpha all the time. And what I mean by that is it's okay to direct a ship. It's okay to run a ship and, hey, this is how we want to do things and we're going to make changes around here. No problem. But if you even look at a corporation or any company or any business, there is other players. To be a leader, you first have to lead yourself, but then you have to lead others. And when you only have half of the, let's say, the corporation or half of the population believing in your situation and the other half is not, there is a point where you got to say, well, let's have some self-awareness.
No, he got the role based on strong beliefs, right? He caught momentum after he said, build the wall, right? Most people would think that, oh, I'm not going to say that, right? That's not strategic. If I say that, I won't win. But he had the I guess the mental fortitude or the belief that other people felt like how he felt. And then he caught fire, he caught momentum from build the wall, and he rolled that into the presidency. And those strong beliefs, whether good or bad, got him in there. And then when someone has a consistent win percentage on these things, it can cause blind spots. And so they don't. We'll just use someone like him. They might not have a filter because in the past, having a filter has not worked out. Yeah, right. Having a filter has not worked out, and not having no filter has worked out. And so now that you're in there, that one is in there with the success of doing something, and we'll take it back to sports. You get all the way to the Super Bowl from outscoring everybody, okay? Not really relying on your defense. Then you get to the Super Bowl, and now you're having a problem scoring, right? And you haven't worked on your defense. Well, sometimes when we're watching the game, we're like, why are they doing that? Why do they keep doing the same thing? Because it's worked up until now. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then when you get to the big game, you don't know how to pivot out of that, So same thing with this situation that we're talking about now. From the outside looking in, we're like, why would someone do that? Why does he not see that? Well, he's just had a pattern of all this success leading up to that, and so now he or she would continue to try to do that same thing to try to see if they can get the same result until it's either too late or they don't care, which is fine. That's up to them. That's their path and their journey, however they want to continue on with that. But I think the illustration with sports best serves that. A team gets all the way to the Super Bowl. What they're doing in the Super Bowl is not working, and they don't know how to adjust, pivot out of halftime. And now they're like, what happened? Right? We did this thing all throughout the season to get to the big game. We got here and we fell flat. Well, because the other team made adjustments. The other team saw what you didn't see. And before you knew it, you ran out of time and you lost the game.
Well, I'm going to say I agree with that. Now, I'm going to say that also, too, though, with presidents and especially him, using with no filter also is part of the reason why he got in trouble. And we've all been there. I've been there myself, like where I'm running a business or running properties or whatever I'm doing. And you start to get in that mode of like, hey, do it. I said to do it type of attitude. And like, hey, and sometimes it comes across as being very abrasive. And it almost makes it seem like you don't have a say into whoever that is doesn't have a say into it. So I know from my personal experiences when I started to, treat people a little differently, maybe become overly assertive. I think talking to people or talking down to people in some cases, which I've done and I've had to catch myself, that's not a good trait to have. And I think that's where I'm trying to come in with talking about Trump is you gotta get to a point where you have to have self-awareness that we all make these mistakes. You start seeing success, you start seeing things happen. Like I said, there was a time where I was working with somebody and this lady said, basically you gotta take time to explain things better to me. You're not doing that. Secondly, she's like, you're just, do, get these things done. And then it's all about numbers and it's all about putting out, and I was kind of running it like a corporation. And I felt that she lost a little bit of, I wouldn't say trust, but respect. A little bit of in the beginning, she was following me. She was all about what I wanted to do. And then over time, she was like, you know what, man, I feel like you're talking down or you're doing things that necessarily does not benefit me. And I feel that I'm doing a good job here. So there was something that I had to catch within myself. And unless somebody or something checks you, at that point, you got to make a decision. It doesn't mean you go cower and you say, well, maybe I'm doing it all wrong. I got to do something else. It just means, let me check myself and let me take a step back here and let me have more self-aware. There is part of being an alpha where you have to understand the audience in the room, because who are you leading other than yourself if you don't have other people following you, like you said? So I think with that situation, he went too far. That's my opinion. I think he's definitely alpha. Now I want to jump to another person here. So Barack Obama, there was people just didn't, they didn't, some people were receptive and welcomed him in. The thing about Obama, and you got to give him respect, is when he came into a room, one, he knew how to come into a room and he demanded respect, or he demanded people to acknowledge him. There's not a lot of people that can do that. The second thing is that he backed up his word on some of these things that he was talking about, but he was very good on speaking. One thing I want to bring up is there was a gentleman that came out recently that said, he went, I don't know where this was at, but I don't know if it was for fallen soldiers, but he was a president that sat there for 45 minutes with a salute. A lot of people liked Obama. There was a lot of people that didn't like Obama. But I'm going to say the masses overall, at one point, he was a very high respected, president. He obviously served 2 terms. Do you think he's an alpha, or do you think he's somebody that's a flag carrier, or somebody that's a not such an alpha?
Well, back to any president of any country possesses some sort of alpha trait. So 100%, he's an alpha, man or woman. We'll just say that there's been women that ran countries, and they have an alpha, right, energy. We'll just say. So yes, he is. I'm pretty sure an alpha. He won 2 terms. You don't do that from. It's not luck. And even if it was planted, he had to present that he could run that to the plants. So
Absolutely. Look, man, here's
yeah.
the reality of it, Chris, and I'll just say,
Yeah.
I agree. With his situation, though, he was an elegant speaker, right? He had a very elegant way of talking, but he got to a point, and I feel that maybe later in his term, that alpha turned cocky. I'm not saying he didn't have respect, but then he always had a way of bringing it back. He started to become overly cocky. I think he turned a lot of people off. And then there was a way he could kind of shut it down a little bit or turn it back. If he would have just kept down that path, he would have pissed more people off. And again, we're just going off of characters of presidents at this point. We're going to talk about sports here in a second. But he's definitely an alpha. You have anything else to say about him?
No, he's an alpha, and I mean, at the end, who cares, right? Alphas doesn't care who likes them and who doesn't, who they make mad. They don't. So at that point, he can't win another term. So at that point, it's like, I don't. Who are you, and why do I care? And it could come off as cocky. It could. However, I mean, in life, you can't make everybody happy. So I think it's better to just stand in who you truly are and make a lot of people mad than be fake and try to make everyone happy.